Well, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to say hello and welcome to a bright new edition of the program as we got live on Grace Radio Africa as we come to you from the Twin Cities of Minnesota of this yours truly. I know some had a name, some have a little bottom. We've had an opportunity tonight to have the name, face, and voice. And of course, as always, Father God, want to give you praise tonight. Want to magnify your name. Blessed be your holy name forever. You give him another chance to see another day. With that, we are grateful to you, Lord. Thank you for what you've done. And in the name of Jesus, we have given thanks. Well, folks, welcome to another splendid edition of the program ASHFORD GARLEY Lives on British Radio Africa. I'd like to say hi to my little brother, Emmanuel Garley, straight out of Liberia. Emmanuel, how you doing? The show you having a great time tonight. Let me now link with the panelists backstage. Mrs. Lexi Brooks Roberts, hello. Welcome to the show.
Yes, hi. Good evening. Well, thank you. How are you, Mr. Gali?
I'm
How are
good.
you, my fellow panelists? Dr. Fitz and Pastor Ade, how are you?
How are you, Miss Roberts?
Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful.
Well, thank you.
Okay. Dr. Fix, how was the weekend, my man? Welcome to the show.
Uh, well, thank you, Ashford. My weekend usually quiet. I spend it with family and then try to prepare myself for other activities for the week. I just want to use this time to also welcome individuals in listening and viewing land and invite you to another explosive episode of Ashford Gallery Live, British Radio Africa. Thank you, Ashford.
Okay. Idatus added, how was the weekend? Welcome to the show.
Greetings, all of you wonderful Liberians, highly esteemed panelists. It's a joy to be here once more to kind of share how we feel and think about Liberia, and perhaps we could better lead. So it's a joy to be in your presence. I trust that this will be a learning experience for me, and I'm looking forward to having a wonderful time. Thank you. God bless.
Okay. Well, I wanted to begin the show tonight uh, taking a look at what happened yesterday in Liberia. We saw the Unity Party launch their campaign at the Anthony Tottenham Stadium, and people came out in their numbers, and there were mixed reactions from some sectors of the opposition and, of course, the ruling establishment. But let me begin with Mrs. Lexi Brooks Roberts. What do you make of the campaign launched yesterday from the Unity Party?
Well, it looks like it was a blessed day. They had a lot of showers of blessing, and they had a great turnout. Some people may say, oh, the stadium wasn't full, but considering the weather and where we are, who we are, or where the people come from, I think they did a great job. They had a good turnout.
Dr. Fisk, you had the opportunity to see a few snippets of the crowd out there yesterday. What are your thoughts?
My thoughts are the following. We have to ask ourselves the motivation that led people to come outside. Were people coming outside only because, uh, they got some money and they got some t-shirt to come outside, or they did come outside because they actually wanted change? Now that would determine how we actually examine what we saw, both with the rally involving Mr. Weah and with the past rally involving Mr. Buakai. Um, so I mean, long story short, I've heard some criticism from the third opposition, which would be the Cummings people. And I've said, you have to understand what's obtaining in African politics. It's hard to defeat an incumbent in African politics. So your number one concern should be trying to get rid of the incumbent. That's the difference between a political opposition and political job seekers. So people need to stop acting as job seekers and try to act as political opposition, and to some extent trying to make sure that the major impediment that's infecting Liberia get removed, which is the corrupt practices of Mr. Weah. So I know some people that have come on the media and be like, oh well, that our money will eat the money. So if Mr. Weah have had thousands and thousands of people, we need to understand how many of these people came only because they needed that $10 to buy a cup of rice for that day. So it's important to know those things.
Thank you. Before I go to Idatus, I want to introduce
Mhm.
a very good friend and big brother, a God-fearing person, one of the astute big brothers that we have within our community, the Reverend Charles Levi Martin. Reverend Martin, good evening and welcome as special guest panelist to Bridge Radio Africa. Would you please unmute your device and
Well, thank you so much, Ashford, the giant. I am delighted to be with you and this august panel that you have here. I am. Am I muted?
no, you're not.
No,
You
we
can,
can hear you.
we can hear you.
Right,
I
you're
don't
fine.
see how I am.
We can hear you, sir.
Let me go again.
Okay. You're loud and clear.
Okay, I see. Okay, let me go into my setting and see if my mic should be
You're live and
high
direct. We can
def.
hear you
My
loud and
mic
clear.
audio. It's not muted.
We can hear you, sir.
Okay, great.
Actually, on the
Because I,
phone
I
mic.
knew it wasn't muted. 1 second. I'm in another area I need to get out of now.
Okay.
There you go. Can you hear me?
Loud and clear, sir.
Can you hear me,
You're
Ashford?
fine.
You're good. Loud and clear. Yes, we
Yeah.
can hear
Can
you.
you hear me now?
Yes, sir.
Wonderful. Oh, I
Yeah.
was saying, I was thank you. I was just saying thank you for having me on the show with this the Gus panel group. I mean, these are and it's a delight to be here with you. It seemed like I'm having a lot of buffering on the screen with a lot of other individuals. Nevertheless, and of course, Dr. James, how are you? Thank you. I'm grateful to be here, and I just want to contribute what I can to this discussion this evening. Thank you for having me.
Okay. Now let us begin the discussion with the
Mhm.
outpour of crowd yesterday of people that came in support of the Unity Party. I want to begin with the Reverend Idatus added. Tell us about your perception yesterday, the Anthony Tubman student. I will give you 2 minutes, and
Yeah.
then we can go around the room 2 minutes each. Idatus added, take it away.
Thank you kindly. So I first of all want to thank the Liberian people for that irrefutable, sacrificial demonstration of support, recognizing that Liberia is greater than one individual. So what we saw yesterday was a clear display of a people who are tired with the regression of our country and therefore sees
Are you speaking
Joseph
to
Iman
me?
Boyka, ambassador and president, as that vehicle that can bring forth the needed change to make Liberia a place that we can dream again, and we can have vision about as this generation. So what we saw was a people that brace through the rain, the dirty water, didn't receive money for t-shirts, came out on their own volition. As you know, it's a public secret. We don't have money. So there was a clear testimony of a people who are certainly patriotic and realize that this demonstration is a demonstration against our nation being drenched into a drug gangsterism, a nation infused in rampant corruption, extrajudicial killings, harmonization of people's salaries. So that rally was a true testament of Liberians who truly want change. We're not forced, we're not paid, but they came out sacrificially to send a message that change must come. And certainly, Liberia will be rescued.
Mrs. Lexi Brooks Roberts, we all know that Idatus Ade is a surrogate for Joseph Boycott and the Unity Party. So I didn't expect anything different coming out of him. What do you know so far?
Well, as he stated, or Miss Dr. Fifth stated, and I've heard that in other settings, it's a Sunday. What else is going on in the country? And nothing to take from them, but sometimes it's not all about what we think it is. Some people are looking for things to do, so they jump on the bandwagon. However, like I stated earlier, they had a great turnout despite the weather. So again, I am not judging these elections by the crowds that are polled, because as we saw with the incumbent, he had movie stars, he had musical stars, so whatever you do to entice the people, they'll come out, be it giving them stipend or whatever you give them, so again, we're so close to October 10th. I'm not going by the numbers anymore until the votes are counted.
Well,
That's my take.
thank you. Dr. Fisk, you know what I stand when it comes to these politicians. You all know by now that I am not uh, a supporter of any of these political parties. But looking at yesterday, unlike the rally of CDC where you heard people saying voters were trucked, where you heard members going to the family members saying, listen, I have the money, you just wear the t-shirts and the cap. I will give you some of the money. We got enough money here. But you saw people yesterday, whether they're angry or whether they're tired of being abused and misused, despite the pour of rain. They were out there at the ATS yesterday. We never heard people saying, you pay us to go there to support the old man, but they were there hiding the numbers. Even though we just heard that voters were trucked from Buchanan. We saw the few footage of people being trucked from Buchanan, but you saw Liberians yesterday at the ATH. What say you, Dr. Fisk? 2 minutes.
Yeah, so as for the only thing I have to say is this. We have to ask ourselves very critically. In fact, the Boaka people have to ask themselves very critically. Are people turning out because of the love of Boaka? Are they turning out because they are aware that there's a possibility that Boaka may not institute the war crimes court? Are they turning out because they understand that they were despondent with Ellen Johnson Sirleaf, the basis upon which they voted George Weah? Are those the reasons why they are turning out, or are they turning out again because they are in yet another cycle of disappointment? They are being driven away from George Weah rather than going towards Joseph Boakai. Okay, because people have been over there for all of these years. People see the city dirty. People have been over there all of these years to see we are using the money to go watch his son play soccer. People have been over there for all of these years and they're jobless. People have been over there all of these years and see that when someone has a kidney problem, they have to fly them to Ghana. So, in other words, if you don't have the capital, then what it means is that you're going to die a very unnecessary death. Okay, people have been there and see killings. People have been there and see the introduction of very dangerous substances into Liberia. Okay, the kush and not methamphetamine. So then the question becomes, are they gravitating towards Boakai or are they rejecting George Weah? If Boakai understands and can provide answer to that, it's going to help him to know how to lead the Liberian people. That is, if he's elected to power in Liberia. Thank you.
Well, Reverend Martin, Alexander
Mm.
Cummins, George Weah, Joseph Human Boycott. One of these three men will take on as the next president
Yeah.
of Liberia. You saw the rally yesterday. What are your thoughts? Give me 2 minutes, sir.
Well, thank you for asking that. Thank you. Every time I see a large rally or the congregation of and massing of Liberians for a candidate, for me that is no guarantee. I must agree that I acquiesce with Letitia Roberts in that not long ago we saw when Robert Sirleaf was running for the Senate. We saw the bombardment of people everywhere on buses. I mean, filling the streets. The preponderance of the rallies and lifting up of his name and shouting. But he got what, less than 2-3% of the vote. So the showing up of large number of people for me is no indication of whether this individual is going to win. I know that individuals made sacrifices. I understand that they bought their own T-shirts and all of that. But let's understand something. There's a large unemployment in our country. A large unemployment. A lot of people, if they could have been earning a living or somewhere else, they would have been somewhere else. Nothing else really to do. And here's my thing. I've come to the realization that everybody may be wearing this T-shirt today, but if you look closely, you will find these people wearing other people T-shirts in other rallies. T-shirt is another means for people to get clothing. A lot of the people who are quite poor in our country. So for me, it's no indication of boycott having a mass number of people that will vote for him. The ballot itself would speak. I don't want to be prophetic, but I can say this:
Thank you.
that is no guarantee. We need to wait and see what happens because that's how I see it. I've seen people show up in large numbers before and really didn't vote for the candidate at all.
Thank you very much, Martin. Thank you. Okay, before we go
That's
to you,
that's my 2 minutes.
that's 2 minutes, sir. I was looking at the clock. That's 2 minutes, sir. I'm not going to cheat you out of your minute. I know what I'm doing. Okay, before we go to Idatus, let us take a listen. Watch a little
It
bit.
is the official launch of the United Party general and presidential election here in the nation capital Monrovia. So you can see the place is jam-packed with capacity. This is the Liberian TV network. The internet is absolutely down for now. So just bear with us. We will do everything possible to bring it happening here today in the nation capital.
Idatus.
Well, thank you, Ashford. So certainly that crowd there was very massive. As a matter of fact, even more than that of the CDC. What makes this a big difference and a genuine certainty, potentially 95% certainty, that majority of those people you saw on the field were people who brave freezing weather to come out and render the support. The supporters you saw on that field, it's a public secret. Our campaign doesn't have money. These are people who willfully did what they did under such difficult weather to be able to represent their dreams and aspiration in the personality of the Honorable Joseph Human Boyka. So anecdotally, the last time I checked on a Charles Taylor, when a crowd of that size appeared, you won elections by about 90 something, by about I think 97%. So make no mistake that we can have some anecdotal evidence. This is a two-man's race, a race between the incumbent and that of Joseph Yuma Boyka. And it is clear that this very youthful generation certainly are listening to the very message that is being propounded by this campaign. And the truth is very clear that they are there because they love Liberia. They're tired, they are frustrated, and that's what makes it a democratic experiment. When people are frustrated with the incumbents, they make a change, and that change is expected to represent their dreams and aspirations. And if that is not a reality, they also will make the change. So make no mistake, people can downplay that rally all they want. It's clear that we didn't bribe people. There is no evidence of people saying they pay us, as in that of the George Weah, President Weah's campaign. So there's no evidence. It was peaceful. They represented in the flood, and they came out en masse demonstrating that they believe the vision of this person, Joseph Imambueta, can make it possible for them.
Thank you. Mrs. Letty Brooks Roberts.
Yes.
Go ahead.
Yeah. No, but Mr. Gali, we've said the same thing over and over. The Before I even go further, please excuse me. I wanted to welcome Reverend Levi Martin. However, I think he dropped off. But it's the same thing. Again, I don't want to say that these people didn't make an effort. They did effort to be out, effort to some supporters bring their friends. So, it's a day out, and like I said, even growing up back home, any it's any bullshit fire blaze, we will all run out and go, and go see what was happening, even just to be out. So for me, I stick with my convictions that until October 10th, everybody comes out. Some people are hanging with friends, so we'll go to the numbers when those turnouts are similar to what the votes are, then we'll congratulate. But until then, everybody brought out crowds, and that's a good thing.
Dr. Fisk, did it come out yesterday because they were angry? And you also heard Reverend Adi say that a crowd of that size can be compared to when Charles Taylor moved to Liberia, Monrovia in the early 90s. And in his mind, he believes the people are tired, the people are angry. George Weah had failed Liberians, and they need a serious change. Now, my question to you, Dr. Fisk, then we can go to either to Saturday. What was the takeaway yesterday from yesterday's turnout from yesterday? What was the message from boycott?
Well, I just want to piggyback on what Reverend Idatu said. He said that there was genuine sacrifices because there was no money. There's another campaign I can compare with that, and that's Ellen Johnson Sirleaf. People supported Ellen en masse, and Ellen made it clear that she was not giving anybody money. The best Ellen did was to provide copybooks and pens and the rest of it, because her thing was that she was encouraging Liberians to pursue academia as a way of trying to become self-sufficient. Okay, but then what happened after she became president for 12 years and did not deliver the goods? What happened after she was president and then there were so many rapes that the public felt she was reluctant to pursue justice for Liberian girls? What happened when she was right sizing and downsizing? All of these things, and writing very lofty reports to the international community to the detriment of what was happening to Liberia.
Mhm.
If you were only grading Ellen based on what was happening on paper, you would say that that was the best government, but it was not. Okay, so all I'm saying, and I continue to repeat, okay, we had a large crowd, a significant, well, we don't know, but what is the percentage of those people that were in Weah crowd that were actually out there because they love him genuinely? Okay, because he's the incumbent and they see him, like some of them, oh, he pay our fees. How many were genuinely there for him? And how many of the people were not? The same thing with Waka. So if you understand that, you have to ask yourself then, are they going away from Weah or gravitating toward Waka? Is it despondence or not? And until we answer that question, I'm sorry, and it would be helpful to help Mr. Waka just in case he becomes president. how to rule in the future.
Pastor Adit, what was the
Well,
message yesterday?
thank you. I couldn't agree with Dr. Fitz even more. Getting the people to see that what they have as a current leadership is beneath their dignity, it's beneath their socioeconomic and political standard. Hence, that means our message is resonating so much so that they can become despondent with someone that they first voted for. And now they begin to see that, listen, we thought we were voting right. Unfortunately, we voted wrong. And that is why they're singing the song, Papa, we are sorry. We made a mistake. Why? Because they realize that youthfulness is not, they are not a vision that leads people. So the people are very concerned. And primarily, they are concerned because they see the iconic Joseph Boyka as a man of integrity who has served his country with humility and sense of patriotism and is truly poised to take that to the national level, wherein this very vision of leadership can be realized. It can be realized through the empowerment of our country, through agriculture, building of roads, infrastructure development, healthcare, education, among several other things, fighting corruption. As a matter of fact, anti-corruption is one of our 6 pillars, to be able to make sure that we can retrieve these stolen assets by these individuals who are currently leading our country. We are very serious about making Liberia a place that we can be proud of and not boast about Ghana, not boast about the Caribbean. We want to go home. We want to call Liberia a place that is safe. We want to restore the dignity of this country, wherein our passports will not be sold to to foreign nationals for little nothing. We want to bring Liberia back to a place of dignity and respect among the community of nations. And so these elections are being well spoken by Liberians themselves. And Joseph Boyka is far less compared to what Liberians develop for their country and what they want. He's just an instrument to their reality. And that is why they showed up in those difficult weather.
Thank you. Mrs. Roberts, do you buy what Prince Johnson said earlier today in his press conference? People have complained, people have talked about the health of Honorable Boykai. Prince Johnson said he was in the car with Ambassador Boykai. And according to him, Boykai said, listen, my people are walking. It won't be fair for me to just sit in the car and allow them to walk. So according to Prince Johnson, Ambassador Boycott got out of his vehicle, walked from Painesville to the Anthony Tubman Stadium. You're talking pretty close to 7 to 8 miles. Now people are saying that this old man is so sick that he would not even be alive to contest these elections. What say you?
It's not 78 miles. It's not 78 miles. You got to do the math.
7 to 8 miles.
Okay. All right.
7 to 8.
Okay.
Yeah, 7 to 8.
All right.
Well, again, I want to disagree with those people that say that. I applaud the former vice president for even doing that. To just show solidarity to his supporters, and the fact that he had the energy to do that is great. We cannot just talk negative all the time. We must be positive when positive is necessary. That's great that he did that. Not only for his physical strength, but the fact that he wanted to identify with his supporters. So I applaud him for doing that. And although I didn't watch, like I said, this weekend, I had a hectic weekend as well, which I would like to point out later regarding the EULA debacle. But yeah, I was not too keen in the Facebook world, as I was in a world of my own of disbelief and trouble. But I want to applaud the ambassador or the former vice president, I'd rather call him that title, for such great job. And again, that we have to know that this man has he's still viable. He still has strength, and we know that. For me, it's not even about his strength. It's more about when he takes office, if he should take office, the vulnerability. Because as we all know, you're not as alert as you used to be. I think that's what people are talking about. But physically to walk, yes, he can walk, and after he gets tired, he gets in a car. That's doable. But when you are running the government, when you have all these things
Thank you.
coming at you, will you have the stamina? That is the question.
Thank you, Mrs. Roberts. Dr. Fisk, walking from Painesville to the 80s. Now others are saying Prince Johnson was not even talking about Boyka, he was talking about Jeremiah Cohen. So I don't know which is which yet. We'll have to revisit the tape. But go ahead, Dr. Fisk.
Well, if Joseph Walker in his age walked 7 miles to ATS, that would have been a breaking news on the internet. It wasn't for a reason because I'm sure it didn't happen. Okay. So I mean, I continue to say this. The population of people that were at ATS, how many of them, if you were to put a ballot box down and say that today as you vote, are you voting that there will be no war crimes court, whether in Liberia or any other jurisdiction? How many people in that crowd will vote against a war crimes court? So what I'm saying is that if Mr. Boakai and the people that support him allow themselves the opportunity to sit back and introspect and be like, it's possible that these people are despondent with we are rather than enthusiastic about us. It will put them in a place of humility and make them to understand that they need to do right by the Liberian people. In other words, despite the fact that Prince Johnson provided a major boost in support to Mr. Joseph Boakai, he needs to implement what the Liberian Court want. The Liberian Court want war crimes court. Why do Liberian Court want? The Liberia doesn't have an agriculture problem. Liberia has a factory problem. And that's not outlined in Mr. Boakai's 6-pillar or whatever pillar. There's no agriculture problem. Liberian people been farming a long time ago. What they have not had are factories to be able to harness what they've been planting. That has been the problem. You see, so if you don't allow yourself to understand these things and you think that, oh, well, the people like we are, he's going to be making another mistake again. And that is my concern. And I continue to express that. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, before I bring in Reverend Martin, let me just say hi to Reverend George. Reverend George, hello and welcome to the show. Okay.
Thank you
Okay.
very much for having me. I'm driving, but I was compared to pull over.
Okay.
Maybe for a few seconds to be able to contribute because
Okay.
I'm listening to the show. I'm hearing some stuff, and we need to do a counter. So that's why I pull over.
Okay.
Thank
Hold on.
you.
Let me go to Reverend Martin. Reverend Martin, listen, I don't want to call your age here, but you can do it yourself. You know, you and I have pretty much been involved into the exercise thing. You know, I walk
Absolutely.
I walk 8 to 10 miles every day. You know, and sometimes it can get tough. But
Well, I'll tell you the truth. Right now, I should have been at the gym. Normally, I do 10 to 12 miles on the treadmill almost every day.
So
I'm almost 69.
Okay, people are questioning Boycott's ability to walk 7 to 8 miles from Painesville to the ATH. What do you make of that? That he walked?
Personally, I think it's irrelevant because Boycott is not running for a marathon. He's running for the presidency of the Republic of Liberia. He's running for his mental acumen. He's running for his experience, and he's not running a marathon. We must consider the man mental acuity right now. We must think about his experience. A lot of folks are concerned about Boyka's physical health. We do not know anything. A lot of speculations, a lot of stuff that we've heard. But look, I believe that Boyka will outlive a lot of people who considering him sick or unhealthy. Okay? We don't know that. Nobody knows the time or how long any individual has to live. But let us consider, since Boyka is running for the president of the Republic of Liberia, let's consider what kind of mental state he's in. That should be our concern. Let's consider what are his visions, What are his platforms? What are his plans? My brother Fitz mentioned something about the fact that we do not have any real manufacturing. We do not manufacture or produce anything. We need leaders with the vision to lift our people from the quicksands of poverty, to lift our people hope for the future. Look, William R. Tolman, when he came there in Liberia, he talked about Operation Production, Higher Heights. He lifted the people in terms of the morale, in terms of the enthusiasm, and they lifted up in terms of what they can produce and help do for themselves as a people. We don't even feed ourselves, and we weren't running whether the man can walk 7 miles. Can he help us to plant? Can he help us to produce? Can he help build roads? It's not a matter of how many miles he can walk. It's how many miles he can take us into the future. That's what we should be considering. We always seem to focus on the wrong thing. Okay? It's not about this guy's physical strength. It's about his mental acuity and his ability to lead. That's what we should be considering and focus on, in my opinion.
Thank you, Reverend. Let me bring in Reverend George. Reverend George, you saw Liberians yesterday, came out in their numbers. What was the takeaway? What was the message from Boycott to his people?
Thank you, Ashford, for having me, and all of you precious
Give me
people.
2
Thank you.
minutes.
You can hear me. Thank you for having me. And my takeaway is no different from my takeaway from Mr. Alexander Benedict's comment when they met in Kakata. Look, for me, the crowd politics is all part of the phenomenon. But what I want to say is that imagine Monserrado County. We all know we have 901,000 registered voters. So let's assume that the Anthony Tottenham Stadium will take about what, 10 to 15 or at most 20,000 crowd. Now you talk about 20,000 people out of 900,000, and you want to start to celebrate for victory. I think it is premature. Um, what about the 880,000 that were left home just for Monserrado alone? So I apply that standard to all of them, whether it's Mr. Cummings, Mr. Weir, Mr. Boakai. So I'm not carried away by crowd because I know it is not analytical or not prudent to say because 12,000, 10,000, 20,000 came out yesterday, so the Liberian people are voting Boakai. That being said, I mean, it could be a sample survey for that. I can't rule that out completely. But what I want to say is the question about Prince Johnson and the leadership issue about Boakai. Look, I think the question about Prince Johnson with Boakai is so troubling on many fronts. But the most important thing is that just 2017, the Liberian people were told that Joseph Newman Boakai was so full of integrity that he was committed to a war crime court, war crime and economic court.
Reverend George,
Yeah.
Who was?
Joseph
can,
Newman Boakai.
can you continue that thought in your second round? Because you just
Okay,
went.
okay. Okay,
Okay.
I'll continue that in my second round. Thank you.
Okay. Let me bring
Let's
in.
respect the time.
Let me bring in the Reverend Idatus added. Idatus, you saw your people yesterday. You watched the whole charade. Tell us about the message from boycott yesterday. You claim that you are supporting
Well,
boycott because of eviction. Go ahead. Take
right.
two.
So certainly at the Anthony Tubman Stadium, Mr. Boyka encouraged Liberians to recognize that he wants to build an enabling environment where every Liberian, young and old, can have an opportunity to make life and be proud of that life. And one of the things he wants to, I mean, one of the ways he wants to do it is in the first pillar of our platform through ensuring an efficient economic management. The current system we have here now, they're printing money without real accountability. We see that bank notes need to be changed. The finance ministry is circumventing. So that fiscal responsibility must come first economically. We want to establish a serious restoration and confidence in our monetary system, Ashford, because it's clear that Liberians need jobs, and that is why we look at our pillar. He emphasized the importance of arrest, agriculture, roads, education, sanitation, and tourism. Liberia has so much to offer its people, and its vision clearly tells us that we can no longer be a people that claim to be rich in the soil, but can feel it in our lives. And he's come to give us that hope, and that hope we are poised to receive upon his incumbency. Now, certainly, folks are saying, will he do it? Well, we have a legacy that has demonstrated that he's done it before. So we can be a bit confident that when giving the helm of power, he will definitely fulfill this reality. And I want to say thank you to the Reverend Charles Levi Martin, who clearly, spoke about the irrelevancy of the questions that we are pandering in regarding whether or not he's running a marathon, when in fact he's here to exact his mental acuity in the leadership and vision to take Liberians out of poverty. And that is made clear at the josephboycott.com website. You go there, you see our 6 pillars where we have laid out with precision where we intend to take Liberia to higher heights, dignity, respect in the international community. Thank you.
Well, Mrs. Lexi Brooks Roberts, in 2017, Joseph Boycott led in all the polls. I mean, he won 14 out of 15 counties in the polls. I mean, he was a favorite, At the end of the day, George Weah became the president. Today, with less than 3 weeks to elections, we saw a very huge rally yesterday. And credit to Reverend George, if you have over 900,000 registered voters with just 10 to 15,000 people at the ATS, is that sufficient to give him that 50 plus 1 on October 10th?
Exactly.
Mrs. Roberts.
Well, according to the math, when you take 915,000 from 900,000, that's not even half. That's not even a quarter. So again, I feel we should stay away from this crowd politics and stick to the issues. What is interesting is 2017 when Mr. Boycott or Ambassador former Vice President Boycott was so much more vibrant. They didn't want him then, and this is what the problem I have with these people that bashed him when he had more of the relevance and right out of the pot at the time, to say, for lack of a better word, right out of the from under Mrs. Sirleaf, where he had fresh ideas. Because when you are criticizing someone, when they, for example, as I'm speaking to someone, it's like, oh, she should say this. It's easier to do that. So when you can do that right after you have all the issues at hand, this gentleman has been abroad. He's come. We don't see anything. What is he bringing back to us that gives these people the impression that he can change things? Look where George Weah has taken the country, 10 feet back. Mrs. Johnson brought it 20 feet forward. He's taking it, forgive me, he's taking it 30 feet back. So we need someone who is willing, able, day one on the job, to pull in, as Dr. Fitz said, some jobs, some connections to fix the economy and just revitalize the country. There's so many things that need to be revitalized on day one. We can't wait for day 100. It's a lot. So with that, I think people are misleading this man with these numbers.
Thank you, Mrs. Roberts. Dr. Fisk.
Yeah, Ashford, thank you. There's something that's going on that I really need to talk about right now and very quickly. Okay, you have in statistics, you have something called a population, you have sample. Okay, population means every single person, sample means a segment of those persons, of that population. Okay, whenever you see people do an opinion poll, they don't take the entire United States of America, but because they can scientifically do a sample, in other words, call individuals and get their opinion, they can make a prediction, and which is within a statistical error of margin that this person is going to win, and in fact they do win. So you can't say you're dispelling crowd politics. What's that? That's crowd is something will fall under the category of something called convenience sampling. Okay, in other words, you are not scientifically picking people to ask them questions. They themselves are volunteering themselves. Okay, but that notwithstanding, you cannot say, even though it's convenient sample, so we're going to dismiss it as well. No, that's not practical. Okay, let me give you an example. What happened with Donald Trump? Donald Trump always had very large following. And what happened in the end? Okay, this guy won the election, even though he may not have won the popular vote. Okay, so if you have 40,000 people assembling at ATS because Mr. George Weah called rally, you need to ask yourself, what is the percentage of those people who will really vote for him only because they love him? You can say everybody will turn up or they turn up because they just want the money. No. And the same thing applies to Joseph Boyka, and the same thing will apply to Mr. Alexander Cummings. You know, crowd politics is very important. It's a major indicator, and we need to pay serious attention to it. I thank you.
Thank you. I will bring in the Reverend Charles Levi Martin.
Yeah, I'm not so sure how crowd politics works in Liberia. We've seen the crowd in the past for Joseph Boyka. One of the first thing I made clear a few years ago when Robert Sirleaf was running, you saw the crowd. I mean, the crowd was overwhelming, but the percentage of the vote that he got was minuscule, almost negligible, really. So I think the Liberian people vote in a very peculiar way that I quite have not been able to put my hand on. I don't know if you look back in the day, you kept my mind, you kept my power, vote for you. Okay, we often do not vote on the issues or the things that are relevant. I've spoken to people who many times Cummings have given up his platform and talk about what he want to do, and the same people come out, look, I can't vote for that man because he's short. I mean, you don't see the relevance and the correlation in terms of how we vote in our nation, Liberia. So I still hold to that the crowd. I'm gonna back to differ and hold with Letitia, because I mean we've seen Boyka had a crowd in the past. I'd love to see us get another leader in Liberia other than the current administration. But unfortunately, I've seen my people again and again vote for the wrong individual, the individual that has really done nothing for them, has been the one that's stolen from them, been the one that's pulled the nation down in the muck and the mar, and still those are the people we vote for. So the crowd, I'm concerned that we need to watch and educate our people more on the different platforms and idealism that these candidates have.
Thank you.
I still don't go with the crowd.
Thank you. Let me bring in Reverend George. Reverend George, besides the crowd, you are hearing something different now. They are saying, Papa, we sorry. We now want coach. We want job. We now want coach. We want food. And they are chanting in all grain, running to Joseph Boyka. What is your take?
You see, that's the deception of crowd politics. They said the same thing in Kakata to Mr. Cummings. They say the same thing in different tone to Mr. Opon. What I'm saying is, brother, even the Donald Trump example you said, 2020, Donald Trump had the biggest crowd in this country everywhere he went. He did not win 2020. Besides that, for me,
he did not win the popular vote either.
I'm focused on what is it that Boyka has to offer. Ladies and gentlemen, Boyka has a judgment problem. Like my sister said, 2017, he was the incumbent vice president, and he was rejected by the Liberian people, having declared that he was parked for 12 years, meaning he did nothing. A park car does not function. He did nothing for 12 years, and he was an incumbent vice
still
president.
got gas money.
Yeah, he still, more than gas money, got $2 million per year, for 12 years, $24 million for being parked. I don't know how many of us can get paid like that. I will be rich. That's besides the point. Boyka has a judgment problem that I want to speak to. I don't, nobody has mentioned that. Boyka was parked for 12 years. He said nothing in the Senate. He was there as president. 26 bogus concession agreement were passed. We don't know what he did with a group of 77 as vice president. And then Boyka sat there as leader of the United Party, and he expelled the standard bearer. Poor judgment. All the renegade faction, he could have brought them down as statesmen and put them together. They expelled Ellen Johnson Sirleaf for the first time in the history of Liberian politics. Waka also, as chairman of the CPP broke down, and one of their own was taken to court. Oh, for weeks we were hearing about finger the document, finger the document. What is it now? Zero. Instead, Waka went. He said he was subpoenaed. He testified as a state witness. The same Waka now, the
Thank you.
little faction that came with Waka, that
Thank
came
you,
with
Reverend.
Waka, Ure, and all of them, they're broken away with Waka now. He bring with Prince Johnson. I'll come back to close on Prince Johnson. What I believe it is very troubling with
Thank you.
Waka judgment issue.
Thank you. It was added, according to your critics here, if Boycott claims that he was a race car park for 12 years, then it has got to be there has got to be something special about this man, that the car is parked, but the car still gets gas. What sense does that make? What do you make of that?
Thank you. Thank you very much. And that is why context is very, very important. So, because you want to score political points, you can decontextualize people's statement. He was trying to make clear to you how the vice presidency work. You are the president of the Senate to break tie vote, and you advise the president. And that's what he did. And that is why precisely Mr. Cummings doesn't want to be a vice president. When you ask him, he said, no, I don't want to be vice president, not in this country. I personally asked Mr. Cummings, and he told me in the town hall, I can serve Liberia in any capacity, but not as vice president. He came back to make that a reality. So let's say who has a judgment problem. Mr. Cummings wants to become president of Liberia, but he chooses Musa Belete, who happens to be of a minority than that of the majority in the persons and iconic figures of Yombli Kanga and Darius Dillon. That's a judgment problem to me. The 66 agreement he's talking about, maybe he doesn't know. Mr. Cummings was part of those who brought that company to Liberia through the Pan-African group. The agreement, you call him bogus today, and that is why Madame Sirleaf gave him the highest award. When you ask her why she gave him the award, what did he do? That remains to be seen. So the issue of judgment is very clear, and that is why Liberians, including ANC folks, are quite disappointed that, in fact, are regretting significantly that Mr. Cummings should have gone with Mr. Boyka. You had no political asset, but you were asking for somebody to come and be your vice president for the third time. Judgment issue. So let's talk about judgment. You want to blame and bring about the Prince Johnson issue. The last time I checked, the only political party candidate that gave Prince Johnson the most money in the midst of broken down schools in Monrovia, Liberia, was Alexander Cummings. Listen, as we approach October 10, we're not going to make this fight between the ANC and the UP, because we need you guys to join the campaign. But if we are forced to defend and be able to put out the facts, we certainly will put out the facts. Thank you.
Actually,
Okay.
may I respond? I think I should.
No, you don't have to. I mean, he has to go
But
right. I think like that.
I'm
Hold on,
asking at least.
Reverend George, when your time comes, you can
Okay,
respond,
okay, no problem. I'll hold my peace.
Okay. Mrs. Lexi Brooks Roberts?
You let me
Yes.
know.
Thank you
Oh,
so
I'm
much.
sorry, Lexi. I'm sorry, Lexi. It was Dr.
Oh,
Face.
okay.
Yeah. Give me your two, Dr. Face. I'm so sorry.
I didn't resist either, huh?
Thank you. Well, the only thing I can say, let me start. It becomes speculative if we talk about the crowd being significant or insignificant, because the Liberian people were in the tombs behind Charles Taylor, and we know they voted for him en masse. Maybe Donald Trump may not have won the popular vote, but he ended up winning the election in the United States of America and becoming president. So then it becomes speculative, okay? But the only thing I want to say is that you cannot completely abrogate what you are saying, okay? Because you don't know the percentage of people who are actually there because of loyalty versus not being loyal, okay? So that is one. So let's look at the issue. I was just in communication with the Alexander Cummings people today. I mean, I'm now a Boyka supporter. Let me just say that one up clearly, okay? However, there's a difference between political opposition and political job seekers. Okay, political opposition understand that what is most important is the welfare of the nation. What political job seekers do is that they try to sit at the table, irrespective of the outcome. Okay, so I say this to say, the biggest problem in Liberia right now is the incumbent. The incumbent hasn't been running the country correctly. Instead of the so-called opposition as a blanket statement right now, pursuing George Weah, then you have this splinter thing. Oh, well, let's attack them. It doesn't make any political sense. None whatsoever. And it's very sad. Okay, because if Liberian people elect Mr. Boakai, the message they will be sending is that if you come in as president, take us for granted, we'll kick you out. If they maintain George Weah, what they say is that you can keep the street filthy and nothing is going to happen. So let us be wise about what we're trying to do for Liberia. Liberia is the most important thing. Thank you.
Okay, Mrs. Roberts, just before you come in, let me take this caller. It's a 302 number. Tell us your name.
Is that 1243?
Yes, sir.
Thank you so much for taking my call. Good evening to everyone. Hey, my name is Joseph Conto, and I'm calling from Maryland. I'm forced to call tonight because we need to erect the checkpoint when people come on national radio to lie to the Liberian people and mislead them. The United Party supporter who is on the show tonight, I mean, he can lie to some of the people, but he cannot lie to all the people because we'll correct that checkpoint. First of all, Mr. Comey had never told anyone that he cannot be vice president. When Mr. Comey was asked the question, he said he didn't go in the race to run for second place. And he wanted to say, you don't go to play a game, you say, I'm going to play the game because I want second place. That's what Mr. Comey said. And then they asked him why he wanted to be president instead of going to run for a senatorial seat or representative seat. Mr. Comey said the presidency is the place where you can impact the lives of every Liberian. Yeah. He said that's the reason why he chose to run for the presidency. So these lies need to stop.
Thank you,
You
Mr.
need
Cotto.
to say the truth and stop lying. Thank you so much for taking my call.
Mr. Cotto. Okay, Mrs. Lexi Brooks Roberts.
Yes, it's interesting that Mr. Conto called to speak to that issue because that's what I was going to speak to regarding Mr. Cummings. Yes, when he came into the race, he said he came to run for president, and as you know, as per the agreement with the CPP, there was no discussion on who would be on the top or on the bottom. From what we heard and read, there were going to be vetting or there was another fight that they had because he wanted them to go through, let the people be the one to decide who will be on top or on the bottom. That was another argument. But to the point where Dr. Fitz talked about, Pastor Alex talked about Alex Cummings, if we're talking about not being truthful or whatever word he used, Alex Cummings may have brought those companies, right? But it is the vice president and the Senate position to vet them. So if I bring you something, you're just going to take it? No, he was doing the best that he could, helping his country. It is still up to the people who are in charge to make sure those concessions were well placed. And that is why he has a energetic young vice president in Mrs. Brumskin, who has the legal mind to look over these concession agreements to make sure they're not bogus as in the past. I also want to speak to what else did he say? Something about giving Prince Johnson $40,000 or $50,000. And this is the thing. This man is into building the country. He's in for education. When Prince Johnson said he was doing a college, he gives to that. Who doesn't give to good causes? He does. So don't use that as a bad thing because he gave it to a bad person, a deceptive person, and that's PYJ.
The Reverend Charles Lever Martin.
Yes, sir.
Give me 2 minutes, please.
Any area I want to speak on
the governance of the country, 2023 Liberian election, the change that we so need.
Well, listen, I think Liberia needs a new direction. It needs a new trajectory. What I think we also need is those of us who are involved in the different campaigns. to go about and let our people know that we have a government in the last few years that has failed us miserably. I've talked to individuals who've run the country in the past, and they have great regrets for having in any way been instrumental in seeing George Weah stand on the mental or in the executive office. He's been a failure. Our country is in absolute abject poverty. We need a new direction. And I believe if our people truly want a new leadership, they have to walk away from George Weah. Let's look at it. I know a lot of people have a lot of things to say. And that's one of the points I brought about coming short, coming this, coming that. But Cummings has proven what he has done in the commercial world. He's proven it in society. I think he would be a good direction for Liberia to take. If we're concerned about stamina of leadership, integrity of leadership, I think that might be the way we need to go. But then again, this is only my hope. This is only my hope. We've tried the other individuals, both of them. We've tried Boyka. We've tried George Weah with utter failure. Utter failure. I think it's about time that we look as the prophet did with Jesse. Let's look for the young man in the field, in the shepherd's field. Let's look at that man, not big in stature, not athletic, but great in integrity, great in vision, great in his hope and what he's done for the future in his own life. He always said past performance is a good indication of future performance. We've seen the past performance of both Boyka and George Weah.
Thank you.
And they're dismal. Thank you.
Thank you, Reverend Martin. Well, Reverend George, you wanted to say something about Prince Johnson. You have the next 2 minutes. Please take it now.
Thank you. And before I go, let me just clear the air. Let me challenge my dear brother, Reverend Idatu. Please, I demand that you bring the proof that Mr. Cummings broke all those 26 concession agreements that turned out to be bogus. I hope in the next section, you will bring the proof to this body so the Liberian people can know. That being said, the judgment issue about Boyka is what concerns me. We know about his leadership failure. Boyka was fired by Samuel Doe because of the PL 480 report that came out March of 1985. Boyka was fired by Amos Sawyer.
Sawyer didn't say that. Sawyer didn't say that, Reverend George.
Okay, but he did not resign. He left Amos Sawyer government without resigning. So let's just read between the lines as intelligent people. What I'm saying is the same Boyka now for Prince Johnson. And Prince Johnson and Jeremiah Cohen told us that Boyka is old. He cannot lead. Prince Johnson told his own people, I drove everybody out of Boyka because he is old, he cannot lead, this is our time. Prince Johnson forgot that this is not the first time for Niba Kando to have VP. Mostly blood, I think we know. So I want to ask the Liberian people who are listening to you today, the advisor to Boyka, who brought in the vice president, has said to us clearly, the reason why I fought my way through is because the old man is old. He will not be able to lead. We the one will take the leadership out. Now, this is the same Prince Johnson my brother forced us to believe today when he said Boyka walked from Pinsville to Anthony Tubman Stadium. A great miracle to be. So now the Liberian people should be careful. Joseph Yema Boyka, who promised that you were going to bring war and economic crime court, is now in bed with Prince Johnson, who is telling you that Boyka will actually not lead the country because he's old.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Reverend George. Idatu's added.
Thank you. So, Ashford, I just want to say thank you for catching Reverend George in an outright story he just fabricated, when in fact, Amos Sawyer is in a video stating that Joseph Iman Boyka, the president in waiting, was never fired. But this is the kind of message they have. It is the message of fear mongering, a visionless proposal to the Liberian people, and all they are running on is youthfulness, inexperience, without vision. But let's be very clear, if I may borrow from the words of the Honorable Mr. Alexander Cummings. If past performance is the best indicator then Joseph Boyka has built for himself a legacy that was independently audited through the PL 480 that represented him to be a man of integrity, effectiveness, and productivity. A legacy in which Reverend William R. Talbot, in his 1974 speech, State of the Nation address, gave Joseph Yuma Boyka a praise for his contribution to the national coffers. A man who, in fact, the 17 auditors went to Liberia at the time when he was managing agriculture and spoke highly and even encouraged the USAID auditor, Mr. John Compitella, in his summary letter. This is public information. So you see, the misinformation of the Liberian people through lies and deception will not get to the presidency. And that is why they found only one person, a man of integrity. So I rather choose someone whose past performance is a representation far better than the current failure in George Weah that we have, than the future expectation of an individual that has no reference to governance in the country of Liberia. While that's true, I certainly don't want to make Mr. Cummings the issue, but you are advocating for someone that has no government experience. You are advocating for someone that has never demonstrated in any way, shape, or form his giving back to Liberia until he decided to make Liberia a retirement plan. So let's be very clear about this reality. October 10 is coming. We should work together as one people, one nation, indivisible, under God, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you.
Mr. Joseph Yuma Boyka, as the ambassador, has the political asset to bring forth the change we need. So let's make no mistake. You can fearmonger your way to the presidency. Thank you.
Dr. Fisk, what do you hope to see from the next president's 100 days in office?
Thank you, Ashford. And to answer that question, let me just talk about both Alexander Cummings and then Mr. Boyka. Mr. Alexander Cummings has been running a corporate entity, and he wants to be. You can say, oh, because of his experience. We did that same stuff with Ellen Johnson Sirleaf, with all of her IMF experience and everything she did not deliver for the Liberian people. And because of that despondence, we had, how do you call it, George Weah. Okay, and it's the failures of Ellen overshadowed the ability for Joseph Boyka to be elected when he ran to be president. So I mean, that's the record is there. Okay, so let's talk about Joseph Boyka. We say if experience is the best teacher, then Joseph Boyka. No, then Joseph Boyka should be out. And the reason for this is simple. PL 480 decimated Liberian agriculture. PL 480 undermined Liberian political institution and led to the overthrow of a Liberian government and the execution of 13 government officials. It was PL 480 that was presided over by Joseph Boyka. Okay, Liberia left itself open. Okay, when it did not decide that it should use rice as a national security commodity and have complete control and not allow the importation. So PL 480, that's what it did. It decimated Liberia. Okay, and Joseph Boyka didn't learn anything from it. If you look at his platform, his 6 pillars, do you see anything that puts Liberia in complete control of rice production in that country? No. So if we are looking at experience in Joseph Boyka, shouldn't be there. Mr. Cummings' problem is that he lacks charisma. And having charisma tells you that, okay, this person has the ability to understand what the public wants. Okay, Mr. Cummings hasn't demonstrated that, so as a result of that, he has problems. Charles Taylor may be Cummings' height or maybe shorter, but Charles Taylor had charisma, and that's the big difference, and it's important. Thank you.
Mrs. Roberts. Please unmute your device.
You're muted.
We still can't hear you. Your device is still muted.
Okay, good.
Okay, as she adjusts her device, I want to go to Reverend Martin. Reverend Martin, this time,
Yeah.
we'll give you 2 minutes and we'll give you additional 1 minute for your closing statement. So you have a total of 3 minutes.
Thank you so very much. Listen, guys, personally, I've met Joseph Yuma Boyka a number of times. I have great regard for him as a Baptist deacon. I am a little leery for some reasons that I wish not to disclose. But I believe that if we're going to go further as a nation and people, then we need to look at the younger people right now. We need to look at youth. We need to look at enthusiasm, and let us not negate the corporate experience of Alexander Cummings. He handled budgets perhaps even larger than the national budget of our country, working in the corporate world. Here's a man with vision. Here's a man that there are no stains on him, though people have tried it to put him in the court unnecessarily. Here is a man, my brothers and sisters, who has built companies in his own country since he's been there, built a school, contributed to education for so many who are making a way into the future in Liberia. We need to start looking in places we never looked before. We always tell people, step out of the box, step out of the box. Liberia needs a leader right now that we can look at who has not come out of the political arena, one who has the experience, and I believe he does. In terms of closing argument, I want to look back at you, Garlic, and just commend you for your stick-to-itiveness, because many are not aware, have tried to put you down, have tried to put you in the mud, have tried to step on you, and like Maya Angelou, you still say, and still I rise, and still I rise, and still
That's
I
right.
rise. This is the hope we need to have for our country. But if we will rise up from the jangling discord that we find ourselves in economically, socially, morally, the very morale of our people is broken. We need to look someplace that we've never looked before. We need to look at Alexander Cummings. I know a lot of people don't want to, but I think that's another mistake we're going to make if we don't do this now. One of my greatest regrets is that Cummings and Boycott did not come together as one ticket. Because for me, that's the only way you can beat an incumbent such as George Weah that is so popular. And George Weah made sure that these people fell apart. They've fallen apart before. They came together in the past, and everybody waited to see what is the word? The imploding of these political groups. Just recently, the confession and the word spoken by my younger brother Henry Costa in terms of what Boycott hoped to do with the Wologisi Mountain for a few $1 million. For me, I haven't heard a strong rebuttal enough to make me not consider that. So I need to think. All I'm saying again, I think right now from where I sit,
thank you so much.
Alexander Cummings is a viable alternative.
Thank you so much, and thank you for making your presence felt tonight here on the British Radio Africa, sir. Okay, Reverend George, give me 2 minutes, an additional 1 minute. That makes it 3 minutes. Take it now, please.
Thank you for having me. And look, to add to what my brother just said, Mr. Alexander Benedict Cummings checked all the boxes there is for the leadership we want for Liberia. Integrity, had no government stain on corruption in him. Vision. And my brother talked about retirement. Gentlemen, it is a market to say between Boakai and Cummings, it is Cummings that needs retirement rather than an 85 years old man who needs actual retirement plan. And I think that what Unity Party should be working on, and that's what we're working on. In the Cummings administration, we'll give Joseph Boakai a handsome retirement plan. Now, think about you and I, actually, all of us here. If 85 years plus people are still struggling for state power, when is our time?
He's not 85 years old.
I mean, forget it. We are you don't know her age. Let's say, yeah. When is our time? When will be our time? When will we contribute? So we talk about retirement. Joseph Boakai is beyond retirement. That being said, look, why didn't Cummings go as vice president? I spoke to people close to Joseph Boakai. One of my personal friends in the neighborhood, Henry Costa, told me that, look, the primary were expecting to hold for the CPP were just in the labyrinthine Fiamomo. We didn't want to go to prime because Cummings were going to win. 400 delegates said Cummings were going to win. So they thwarted the primary, and Darius Dillon came on the end and said Cummings did not understand us. Actually, it was not a primary per se. We wanted to select somebody who would run with Boakai. It was a coronation. That's how deceptive people are. They cannot leave Liberia. You want a political process, but you want to be coronated. Okay, that was the problem. And Mr. Cummings stood a ground, and I respect him today. And I know for sure, based on the ground game and the 6-year work he did, he will be elected. That being said, my brother talked about the PL480 being the one that devastated Liberia into the change of power and all. And my brother, that you should go back and ask the question: if you wanted a job now, what experience will you use? Will you 10 years experience or 25 years experience? Which one you will put forward? 5 years experience or 30 years experience? It tells you that Joseph Newman Burger got nothing to offer Liberia. They keep going back to agriculture, William Tubman. What about 10 years ago when he was sleeping for good 12 years? What wrong with that experience? Does that qualify him to become president of Liberia? No. Okay. And to close my 1 minute, I want to thank you
No,
for
no,
the time.
you got less than 10. You got less than 10 seconds. So
Okay, I just want to thank you and thank the Liberian people this time around. We know that they will make the right decision. We are not going forward if we keep going backward.
thank you.
Joseph Newman Braga represents the backward, and George we are also, Mr. Cumming is the forward-looking
Thank you,
candidate.
Reverend George.
Vote
Thank you so
number
much.
4.
We'll be looking forward to see you tomorrow night again on this platform. Thank you so much for taking up time. Idatu's added, give us 3 minutes, please. 2 minutes.
My fellow Liberians, you
Yeah.
have quite frankly heard about the ANC brothers who and sister, by the way, who consistently use misinformation, fear mongering, and incompetence or youthfulness as a vision for Liberia. But clearly, the messages aren't resonating with the Liberian people because they see it in a man of integrity, just of Imam Boyka. You know, if I may borrow from the words of Mr. Alexander Cummings, he stated very aptly that past performance is the best indicator for the future. The last time I checked, we have a current incumbent whose present performance is a dismal failure. And we have a group of other individuals whose youthfulness is the only vision they have. We certainly have to be careful. We're not here to buy a pig in the bag. They were asking us to choose a future that does not represent a legacy competent enough juxtaposed comparatively to that of Joseph Imam Boyka. What personality works in the government but yet has no scandal of corruption? What personality works in the government that full presidents in our history have co-signed on his incumbency? Listen to Madam Ellen Shirley Johnson's tape. She said the best person to replace her is Joseph Imam Boyka, Willamara Talbot, Samuel Kayendo, Dr. Amos Sawyer. You can beat that experience. If he did not have what it took to lead Liberia, these full presidents would not have elected him or chosen him to lead. He carries a vision that is far bigger than himself. What has he got to lose? He's advanced in age. The Constitution does not discriminate him. Only my ANC brothers and the likes consistently and repetitively disregard the dismal feel of George Weah, but make Mr. Joseph Imam Boyka the focus. But the truth remains, Liberians spoke on yesterday, and they remain committed and resolved to ensuring that this vision, which is not an opportunity to booga dance, that our city will be clean again, that Liberians can go to school, that civil servants can earn a livable wage, our healthcare workers, our students can be proud of a country way bigger and one that they dream of. To my fellow seditians and ANC brothers and sisters, make no mistake, there's space on this train for you, and I encourage you to be a part of this vision called Arrest, and go look at the Joseph Imam Boyka pillow. Think Liberia, love Liberia. Let's build Liberia together. Attacking one another makes no difference. George Weah is our target, and Liberia will be rescued in the future not too distant come October 10. Thank you.
Dr. Fisk, giving 2 + 1. Take it away.
Okay, thank you, Ashford. So the thing people need to understand is that Cummings checks the same boxes as Ellen. But at the end of the day, Ellen operated in a silo. So in other words, she did not understand the plight of the Liberian people and did not deliver for the Liberian people. People were being raped in that country and there was nothing that was being done. Okay, she was right-sizing and downsizing, giving that policy mandate to the ministers, and they used it at their discretion. If you wanted somebody and the person said no, then you downsize them. Okay, so a lot of indiscretions happening under Ellen, but this is someone who worked at the IMF, who was supposed to be someone of high integrity. She was prepared to compromise the Liberian development of Liberia through her contract with Exxon. Okay, $50 million. That's the change. That's the pay for those executives, an entire nation. Okay, so Cummings checks those same boxes. So if people want to come and talk about Cummings being a good president, what is Cummings' platform that talks about establishing a system of government in Liberia? Liberia has never had a system. Liberia has had a semblance of a system of government, but never a system, which is why people get in jobs and they feel insecure because they know the president can dismiss them at any time. Okay, this is why George Weah could look at the judiciary and just dismiss somebody from the judiciary because there's no system. Has Cummings talked about establishing a system? No. So then how do we know that he's going to be the best person for Liberia? No, we can say so. Let's look at Mr. Joseph Boakai. Mr. Joseph Boakai, PL 480, destroyed Liberian agriculture. Liberia could not compete with the United States of America. America was using machinery after the cultivation of rice. What did Liberian farmers have? So we could not compete. As a result of that, Liberians were turned into animals because it's only animals that you feed. Okay, people with dignity work. Okay, and that was taken away from Liberia through the PL 480. What did the PL 480 also do? It made the political establishment at this time reliant on the United States government. So when the United States government was not happy and decided to increase the price of rice, it led to an overthrow, and that was PL 480. And all of that was presided over by Joseph Boakai. Did Boakai put anything in his platform that reflected that damage that was done to Liberia? No. But long story short, political opposition tried to correct the prevailing existential threat to the country, which is what the political opposition should be doing. But it looks like we have political job seekers. So at the end of the day, people are going after each other, leaving George Weah, who is a real threat, untouched. And that's bad. Thank you.
Thank you. Mrs. Lexi Bruce Roberts, your 3 minutes.
Wow. Well, thank you. Thank you to Reverend George. Thank you to Reverend Charles Levi Martin. Thank you to my fellow panelists. Thank you to our listening and viewing audience. In closing, I would like to say to you, you have drugs in your country. You have murders in your country. A whole team of auditors. How ironic is that would die in one administration, especially in the beginning. You have a slew of issues in your country. And if you want to say you want to feel sorry for a man who has lived his life, who has served as has been said, he has done everything that needs to be done. He should be saying, I will sit back here and advise the younger people to guide you, to show you the right way, things that I've seen along the way. But they want us to sit here and keep doing the same thing and expect a different result. No, even when you hear, with all due respect, Mr. Boakai spoke to the young people the last time. There was nothing he said because he's been on this avenue. He hasn't done anything to change their lives. Why is it now we're expecting to change anything? But again, it is up to Liberian people. We have given you the options. It is up to you to decide who best represents you. Tomorrow, when you wake up on the 10th or the 11th of October, or when they do the runoff, what better state will you be in? You're going to sit there again and say, hey, Lord, hey, man, why we feel sorry for the paper? Or why we gave the thing back to the man? In the beginning, say the beginning of anything is when you know the best. Well, George Weah has shown you what he could do. Imagine if you gave him a second term. He would take Liberia and probably lay it in Ivory Coast or put it in Guinea or put it in another country because it will be all his and he could do with it what he wants. So Liberians, we cannot tell you who to vote for. We've made the case and we'll continue to make the case, but it's up to your conscience and what's best for you. Thank you, Mr. Garley, and thank you to our viewing audience. Have a wonderful evening.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, as we close tonight, with just few weeks to elections, This platform belongs to all of you, whether you're from the CDC, the ANC, Unity Party, the Gonкlo Camp, Clarence Moniba. You're welcome. Bring your surrogates, bring your representatives. Come to this platform. This is the bridge that connects the 15 political subdivisions. And like the wise man once said, you are sitting on your deathbed. The dreams, the song you didn't produce, the music you didn't produce, the ideas, they all came to you and said, we came to you and only you could have saved us. But now we are going to die with you. What dream, what idea, what voice you have before these elections? Come to Bridge Radio. We'll be looking forward to seeing you. With that said, folks, tough times don't last, tough people do. When you fall, please make sure you land on your back because when you can look up, you can get up. This has been yours truly, the brother who doesn't eat iron, the medicine of the microphone, Africa's media doobie doo extraordinaire. I'm ASHFORD GARLEY. Have a good night.